So good evening to everybody to today evening's masterclass brought to you by Antwalk. So today's topic that we're going to be dealing with is going to be about a career in web application security. And just a quick introduction about Antwalk. We have been into the edtech arena for the last 2 years. And quite recently, we have launched our 16-week bootcamp course. And one of our leading experts who is doing a couple of topics in our bootcamp courses, today's expert, Mr. Jagdish Prasad. So give a brief introduction about himself. So if you can see the screen, he comes with more than, he comes with more than kind of 30 plus years of global IT experience. He's worked across the big guns like TCS, HCL. He's also a CISO certified by EC Council. His work experience spans across not only the Indian continent, but also around Asia Pacific regions. In addition to that, in addition to also kind of teaching with Antwalk, he also kind of trains in BITS Pilani, and his domain expertise kind of range from cyber and network security to cloud computing and ML. Also, furthermore, he conducts corporate trainings for cybersecurity and machine learning. Quick introduction about his academics. He's a BTech from NIT Kurukshetra, and he's an MTech from IIT Madras. I have been fortunate enough to know Jagdish sir for the past almost like a year now, and he's also been a part of 2 of our batches, and he is also going to be a part of our future batches as well. It's an honor and privilege to have someone like him amongst us, and I cannot wait for him to get the session started. So without any further delay, I give a warm welcome to Jagdish sir and would request him to get the class started for us. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Kaushik, thank you, Kaushik, for that generous intro. Let me share my screen, and can everybody see my screen?
It's visible, sir.
Okay, great. So let me put it on show mode, and we start from there.
And sorry, so guys, I request you to stay on mute, and whoever has questions, please start putting it in the chat. We have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. We'll pick those up. Thanks.
Okay, great. So okay, great, guys. So wonderful to see so many of you joined this evening and this masterclass. I'm super excited to spend next 1 hour or so with all of you guys. So what are we going to do in this 1 hour? We're going to look at the importance of web application security, what is DevSecOps, an overview of that, what are the various tools and trends, OWASP, and then about a career in web application security. So this is what I'm going to cover. We'll have a good Q&A session. You can ask any questions you have. I'm going to skip the intro slide, but I'm going to stay a little bit on that before I move to my next slide. So as I talked in my agenda, what I'm going to do during this 1 hour, what I'm going to take you through during this 1 hour is what is web application security? What are web application vulnerabilities? What is a full cycle of an attack? When you get a cyber attack, be it a virus attack, be it a ransomware, or be it a DDoS attack, whatever it is, you know what it is, how much time it takes, how it is planned. And trust me, like what we see is like we see what about a glacier floating in a sea, 90% underwater, 10% above water. So we see only 10%. As I said earlier, I'll talk about OWASP. What is OWASP, how it categorizes vulnerabilities, and which actually help in making applications secure and make the life of developers and as well as the security professional like you and me easier. And what is secure application development process? How it is different from the good old traditional development process when internet was not there and cybersecurity issues were not there. And then finally, we'll close with a brief overview of the process, how to handle cyber incidents and cyber crimes. And to make this session fun and interesting, we'll have some polls and some quizzes. So keep your fingers ready to hit the keyboard whenever Kaushik comes up with the polls and quizzes. So let's look at cyber threats at a glance. Okay. How many of can you guys guess? Can you guys guess that where does India stand in terms of cyber threats or cyber attacks? Which is the most attacked country in the world, and what is the ranking of India from the cyber attack perspective? Just put it in the chat, and then we'll see some of the answers. So that's fine. Put it into chat. I'm waiting for 10 seconds. Okay. So let's look at it. India is the third most attacked country. So
Sir, I think 2 or 3 people have gotten it correct. They're in the chat third, they are 5th and 10th. So I think they're coming close.
So I would give it anywhere between, and apologies for the typo, it should be attacked. I would give it between 3rd to 6th. It depends on day to day, but on an average, it's the third most attacked country. And on an average, a cyber attack, a larger cyber attack on a corporate, not the cyber attack which happens on your and my laptop, but on a corporate, it costs USD 4.7 million. It's a good amount of money. It includes the money they lose in terms of opportunity and the money they actually spend, which goes out of the pocket to recover from that incident. Cyber attacks in 2020 costed 10 plus trillion. Okay, costed 10 plus trillion USDs. And it is projected to rise to about 10.5 trillion in 2025. Now that's a huge amount, considering that India's GDP is about 3 plus trillion. In 2020 itself, we have spent, or the cyber attacks have costed more than 3 times of India's GDP. Think about in 2025, even if we are say 3.5 trillion, it's again will be 3x kind of the money. So that's at a glance what a cyber attack can cost and what a cyber attack can cause, how much it can bleed the corporate. And that's why the cybersecurity carriers today are one of the hottest carrier. Okay, and the skilled people are in demand. Now, you would have heard it about 4 months ago. Air India, there are about 4.5 million customers whose data was, whose personal data was breached or compromised. And this actually happened, for a good amount of time. For about 5 months, the data was compromised. Now, the breached data includes passenger name, date of birth, contact information, passport, and ticket information. So virtually everything. Look at virtually it, costs almost everything. It includes everything. So if you are a frequent flyer with Air India, as we are talking, your data is getting sold on darknet, and somebody is making money with that data. Now, that's not a single incident. It's not a single incident about Air India only. There have been other organizations which have been subject to attacks, like massive ransomware attacks on PTI last year. There were attacks on Dr. Reddy's labs. There were attacks on, sweet shops like Haldiram and Mithas. So, you can think of that these hackers are also people like you and me who like who are interested in sweets as well. So basically, what we're talking about, that Air India is not alone. Now, cyber warfare can get very, very pervasive, and it could be used by nation actors to impact or to hurt other nations. Don't know how many of you heard about Stuxnet? It's a big example where USA and Israel, they got together and they derailed Iran's nuclear program for many years, and in fact, more than a decade. Now, of course, it's not publicly proven, but end of the day, the Iranian facility was attacked by Stuxnet virus, and all the centrifugal devices, they were subjected to multiple failures, resulting into the whole plant going out of operation for a number of times, and which actually resulted into a delayed nuclear program. Another example, 52% of Indian companies fell prey to cyber attacks in last 12 months. And about a year back, Mumbai was subjected to 8 hours of power cut across Mumbai. Now, while we know in public that it happened because of this, Western grid failed or whatever it is, but the real story behind it, and it is suspected that it was handiwork of Chinese hackers. And it's not only the Mumbai power supply. In fact, there are a number of other infrastructure facilities where it is suspected that the Chinese hackers could get in and cause disruption. So think about a future warfare scenario, how the wars will be fought. Okay, so this is a brief intro about the scale of cyber threat and how it can impact. So it's poll time now, and over to you.
Yep, so yes, guys, we're gonna run a quick poll, and it's on your screen right now. So start putting in your options. Okay. And we are done. So I think majority of them have answered Nmap. We have 16 people who've answered Metasploit, and we have 14 Kinesis and 1 Beef. So we can rule out Beef. Beef is an exploitation framework. If generically categorized, Nmap and Metasploit would also be penetration testing tools. So the technical answer would be Kinesis, but I still want to get Jagdish's opinion on this.
Yep, I think you're right. Nessus is the right tool for compliance and vulnerability checks. Nmap does identify. Nmap is a tool for network discovery, so it can identify what are the machines, what are the hosts on the network, what kind of ports they have open, what kind of operating system they are running, and based on that, you can actually find out what kind of vulnerability. So if I know that some machine is running, say, Linux 7.x, then I know that it's vulnerable to the Tikau hack. So Nmap is that kind of tool. Metasploit actually is a suite of tools. It's got it's on Linux, and it's a suite of tools. So it's not one tool. Nessus is also part of that. So if we take them, yes. But Metasploit by itself is not a tool. It's a set of tools. It's a framework. And then Nessus is, of course, is the right answer. That's what I would say. Yep, Kaushik. So thank you, guys. Good. Pretty good of you. Many of you got it right. So that's great. Okay. So, Kaushik, if you can, yeah, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So now let's look at, as I was talking about before going to polls, we were talking about how does an attack take place? What is the sequence? What are the steps? Uh, is it that a hacker gets up on one fine morning and while having his or her cup of coffee says that, okay, yeah, let's attack Air India today, and then steals 4.5 million of customer data? Is it that simple, or is it that quick? I would say no. It's like a war. As a war is not an impromptu action or impromptu decision. It requires good amount of planning, good amount of preparation, good amount of movement, and then finally the actual action. Similar is a cyber attack. 90% of the time is behind the scenes. So there is good amount of planning required. There is good amount of intelligence gathering required. There is, based on that intelligence gathering and planning, you design how we're going to exploit it. So let's look at what are the steps, what are the frameworks. Basically, there are two models or two frameworks which actually define the attack life cycle. And this is, by the way, it's called cyber kill chain. Okay, so there are two models. One is Lockheed Martin and another one is ATT and CK. My personal favorite is Lockheed Martin, which is also called, as I said, cyber kill chain. The reason for this is that it's expressed or articulated into very simple language. There are 7 steps as per Lockheed Martin. There are 7 steps, and these 7 steps for a cyber attack are: first is reconnaissance, which is basically in intelligence gathering. Now, what do we do during the intelligence gathering? So we get data. We get things like the hosts. We identify the host. What kind of operating system is running? ID and passwords on those hosts, which I can use to get into. Or if there are any other vulnerabilities, which I can use to get into. And there are a number of tools which provide this kind of facilities. One of the tools we just now discussed, Nmap. Then there are other tools like, JAP or BubShoot or NetCoil or NetStab, a number of tools which can be used for this. So once I have found out a vulnerable site or a vulnerable host, then I plan how to exploit it. And the technique to exploit it, or the tool or the utility which I developed to exploit it, is called weapon. So it could be a small program, short program, which can get me into that host. So I developed a weapon. And once I developed a weapon, then I have to deliver it to that host. So I will use a vehicle to deliver that utility or that weapon to the host. It's like in a military warfare, you need a missile to deliver a warhead. So it's like delivery mechanism. Now, what do I do for delivery mechanism? It could be either an email, or it could be an SMS, or it could be a WhatsApp message where there's an URL link, URL embedded, or it could be physical, meaning I can load that weapon on a USB and I can leave it on somebody's table or my target's table, and I can make it attractive. Like, it could be the USB could be titled as that Asia Pacific compensation survey for 2021. Someone will be interested to know that what my salary should be as per the benchmark. And the moment it gets onto the target machine, the weapon starts acting. Weapon comes alive, and it starts exploring the machine as well as it starts exploring the internal network. So it's like something you have put in, or you have planted somebody inside the house. Now that person goes around every bedroom, every drawing room, kitchen, and then finds out what more vulnerabilities are, or how additional thieves can get into, or can open windows from outside. So that's the exploitation stage. Depending on how much I explore and what kind of things I find out, I may plant, or I may send some more, malicious code. And once that malicious code gets installed, and then it starts, taking control of the machine or taking control of that environment. So that's my installation stage. So in installation stage, I have supplied more malicious actors, and those malicious actors start giving me more and more privileges. Like it could escalate privilege, or it could give me more user rights, those kind of things. And once that happens, that means then I'm in command and control. Now I'm complete in command and control. The hacker could be, or it would be sitting thousands of miles away. But from that location, he or she has got this backdoor, which could be a weapon, or could be an additional malware which was installed, can give the complete control of that machine to the hacker, and then hacker can perform whatever action he or she wants to perform. Or hacker can in turn command the malicious software to execute some actions. Okay, and that's when the person starts actually performing the damage. Now, the damage could be anything. Whatever may be the motive of the hacker. It could be monetary, it could be idealistic, or it could be destruction. It could be a warfare. So if it is a terrorist wants to destroy something, if it is monetary, then the person would probably do ransomware kind of attack and ask for money. Or if it is an ideological, then they may not ask for money, but they don't like that website, or they don't like the philosophy. So they would bring down the website. So that's when action on objectives, or whatever the reason the hacker was going through stage 1 to 6. It's actually, this is where the result comes. This is where the outcome is. This is where the person achieves whatever he or she wanted to do. So this is in brief a cyber kill chain. This is how it happens. Now, once the hacker has achieved his or her objectives, person leaves. So I have added an 8th stage to this cyber kill chain, which is basically clear of your footprints. Once you're going out, you clean the crime scene, like in a physical crime. Whenever a criminal goes out, they try to dress up, or they try to clear up the crime scene as much as possible. They don't want to leave any evidence. So similar is the case here. Once you're clearing the crime scene, that means you are clearing your log files. You may not want to leave any malware, any virus on that. You may not want to leave any timestamp or anything which would help the cyber forensic guys to identify you or to track you. Now, quite possible in some cases, you might leave a small backdoor which actually hides itself for any future contact. Now, that depends on what your approach is, what your objective is. Do you want to come back again? It's all about that. So that's something depending on the objective. So this is briefly about how an attack is performed. Now, once we've seen an attack is performed, why do web applications become insecure? Why are these web applications? There is a security issue. So, and how we can make them secure. The key thing is traditional application, and when internet was not there, applications were installed in a controlled network. They were accessible only to authorized people. not everybody could access those applications. Now today, the applications are exposed on to public. Look at the bank, you and me bank with. We can access our bank anytime because they have provided us a URL, or they have provided us a link to access to in a very simple language. Now, is that link only restricted to the bona fide customers of the bank? No, it is not. That link is exposed to everybody. Now that link would lead to a login page or authentication, which is in general called. So only bona fide customers or users can get into the system, but to the authentication page, everybody can access that page, and that's where the vulnerability comes in. It's also that it's available 24/7, 24/7. So a hacker has got plenty of time to break through that particular page. Then, because if your development is not very secure, if you're not thought carefully, you developed application into a traditional way or in a less secure way, then the hackers today have tools which are very sophisticated and very performance oriented, which can break into, which can monitor the traffic, and they can find out the credentials which you're using. We'll talk about like HTTP. Most of the website today you see are HTTPS, which is secure. But if you have an HTTP, that means whatever you type on your keyboard, it goes as it is on the network. Anybody with tools like JAP or Bubshoot can sniff onto the network, and they will be able to see what you have written. So these are the things which cause security issues. Now, how do we manage this? There has to be a security testing, and down the line I'll talk a little bit more about it. But things like there has to be dynamic security testing, there has to be static security testing. The code has to be reviewed that it is good from security perspective. Your functionality or your technical testing has to be done from security perspective. Penetration testing is something which finds out a running application and what kind of holes it has got. So it identifies windows which can be opened. And then of course, what kind of runtime application self-protection. How can application identify itself that it's under attack? And then either it can raise an alert or it can go into a self-protection mode. Now, these are the things which you do as part of web application security. Okay, so what are some of the common vulnerabilities? And I'm going to talk about 6, in fact 5. And SQL injection is one of the most common vulnerability. What is SQL injection? Normally, when you have an application, let's say Amazon or and on your bank, when you are asking for any data, you will have on Amazon. You can select a product, and it displays all the products which correspond to your selected category. Now over there, you actually write down that, okay, I want to see men's shoe for running. Instead of that, you can as well write an SQL statement. Normally, you and me are expected to write a category, or in a login screen, I'm supposed to write a user ID and password. But in password, I can actually write a valid SQL statement, which when there is an authentication being checked. So normally when you enter a user ID and a password, there is a background check on the server. In the background, there is a check that if the entered user ID and entered password match with the stored user ID and stored password, allow access, otherwise no. But instead of that, I can write where password equals given password, I can say password equals 1 is to 1, 1 equals 1. which becomes true, and you will get an access to it. So that's SQL injection. SQL injection is a method by which an attacker exploits vulnerabilities in a way a database executes search queries. And it can be very, very dumb. It can not only reveal your authentication detail, person can actually destroy or delete your complete database if your database is vulnerable. The second is cross-site scripting. Basically equivalent to SQL injection, but in terms of how your data is displayed on your browser. When the data is displayed on your browser gets some commands. Either it could be in HTML, or it could be in JSON, or it could be anything. And these are actually interpreted by the browser, depending on the format being used. Now, XSS is an equivalent of SQL for browser. Like SQL injection is for a database. XSS injection in simple language is an injection, or it's an exploitation of browser. So a script can be written, and that script can cause, again, havoc. The third one is cross-site request forgery. Now, this is something where an attacker can send you, when you are on your browser, everything executes with your permission, your level of permission. Now, if an attacker sends you a pretty enticing email, and which has got a URL which you are tempted to click, and that URL can connect to your bank and do a fund transfer. Now, if you guys would have heard about some of these mobile apps, where it happened on one of the popular mobile app, where people will call and they'll say that there is a code you scan, or there's a URL you click, and I'll give you a token fund transfer. And it happened other way around. The funds were moved from the victim's account to. So this is where cross-site request forgery comes in. Next is buffer overflow. This is more about from the operating system perspective. Operating system stores, whenever a program moves from executing from one subroutine to another subroutine to another subroutine, it stores the context of the previous point, where it has to return after the execution of that subroutine. It stores into a stack. If that stack can be overwritten, if there is a vulnerability and that stack can be overwritten, so it remembered that I have to return at location number 101, but if somebody can override that location and can say that you have to return at location number 150, the job is done. And at 150, you put a pointer to a malicious code, and then you can get control of your machine. Denial of service, it's basically every server is designed for a capacity. It's like a highway. A highway is designed for a certain number of cars per minute. If there are more number of cars per minute on that highway will choke. A jam will happen. Same thing happens. Same is the concept, denial of service. If a server has, let's say, a capacity of 1,000 users at any given point of time, and if more than 1,000 users log in, that will cause a traffic jam problem. And even the genuine users then they will not be able to connect, or they'll not be able to log into that server. What does an attacker do? Attacker creates false logins or fake logins. In a sec. Yeah, need to connect my adapter. So creates fake logins or multiple logins, and they use number of techniques for it. So they can use a set of machines where they can do, and this is an automated activity. They can use a set of machines, they call it botnet, which will direct traffic towards this server, and end of the day result in very slow performance or crash of that server. So that's how it goes. Data breach is something we talked about when we talked about Air India case, where the data, which is of importance, like personal data, or say in a COVID times, the data about the vaccine at some point of time, the R&D details. So that's called data breach, which you can get monetary value out of that. So these are the common vulnerabilities of the systems or of the web applications you have to take care, and you have to design your system so that these vulnerabilities are taken care of and they don't take your systems down and nobody is able to exploit them. So brief, and again, then there is a quiz time. So over to you, Kaushik.
All right, guys. The quiz is like, which of the following tools do you prefer for penetration testing? We start putting in your responses. And if there's a tool that you guys use here and you don't see in the options, feel free to leave it up in the chat window. Right, guys. So I think we have a mix of people using Burp Suite and Metasploit, majorly speaking.
Yeah. So I think, guys, again, see, penetration testing is something which involves multiple activities. It right from it kind of overlaps with the cyber kill chain we talked about. So it does intelligence, it does develop a weapon, and then of course launch an actual attack. Metasploit is the right framework. As I said, it's a set of tools and it has got tools for every stage of cyber kill chain. So Metasploit would be the right answer. And Burpsuite is actually used for a couple of stages over there. So Burpsuite is one of the tools which you can, as part of that, you can use it. So that's the right answer. Let's move to next one. So what we have done, we have seen the cyber kill chain, and then what are the vulnerabilities in applications. Now, we talked a little bit about how we can make our application secure. How the typical security movement has moved from traditional application in today's scenario. So there are three terms which you would have heard of: DevOps, DevSecOps, and SecDevOps. This basically means that how security was earlier, when it is now, or where it is moving now. Means this is where. So DevOps, in traditional applications, we used to think about security. When we had done we would do analysis, we will do code design, everything build, and when we going to deploy it and operate, at that time we thought, oh yeah, let's put some security, let's put a firewall, let's put some antivirus and all that. This was the traditional model, which is called DevOps, no longer safe and no longer in use. So the next one came DevSecOps. What does DevSecOps means? That start security when you are actually building the product, but when you're in the test stage. At the test stage, you not only test for the functionality and performance of the product, but also for the security of the product. And then of course, release and maintain and operate, you follow. So that's called DevSecOps. Most of which is the prevalent strategy today, but not the one which is going to be gone further. Organizations have moved to something called SecDevOps, and which is what I talked a little bit, that you start building security right from your analysis and design stage. The moment you want to make a product, you want to create a product, also think about the security requirements. Traditionally, we used to think about the functional requirement, which what the business needs. Then there were non-functional requirements, which meant performance and those kind of things. And then now we have another third type of requirement, which is the security requirement. Again, business won't mention it, but this is something as technical guys will have to think about, designers will have to, product managers will have to think about. So the design security or security is included as part of design, and that's how then it goes. So this is what SecDevOps, and which is what is today gaining traction and which is the need of the hour. So if I just have to summarize those three things, DevSecOps was the last when I was actually in the field. That time I thought, oh, I should do something about security. SecDevOps is something when I was testing the product. At that time, I thought, yeah, there should be something about security. And then of SecDevOps is something which is right from beginning. So that's the concept, and that's the philosophy, and that's the framework which is in place today. Now, why should we do secure application development? We talked about all this. Like an attack happened, maybe my system will be down for a couple of hours, and or maybe a day or so. Why should I spend so much time and effort and money on it? Now, the reason for application security is application security can make or break entire companies. It's I don't have that point on here, but it's a finding on an outcome that companies which were subjected to severe cyber attack, they actually went out of business. Means they disappeared from the market in 18 to 24 months. Okay, so that's the kind of risk. Huge amount of sensitive data is stored in business applications today. Talk about vaccine formula. If somebody gets it, then the Pfizers of the world and AstraZenecas of the world, who would have spent huge amount of money on the R&D, they lost the whole plot. It's not only that, but businesses that underinvest in security are liable to end up with financial losses. Financial losses because they will lose either their competitive advantage, or there could be any compliance regulators, like in European and US and in India now. Every country for that matter has got laws around cyber data, and especially privacy or privacy related issue. Companies who collect personal data, they cannot they are held liable if that personal data is leaked. So somebody can go and sue Air India and claim damages because they have lost his or her personal data. So, and now how does it happen? OWASP 10 compliance reduces cyber risk to a great extent. Users of applications, as a business, as the customer, if your bank comes tomorrow and says that because we were attacked, there was a cyber attack, we have lost how much money you had with us in your account. You don't bother for that. It's not, you'll say that that's your business. You have to manage it. So building secure application is thus very, very important. Very, very important. So it's not question of cost, but it's question of competitive advantage. It's question of edge over your competitors. And that's why we need secure application development. Now, briefly, covering what are various application security tools and trends. Trends are, we're shifting to cloud. Gone are the days when every company had their own data center. Moving to cloud. Now, cloud, while gives huge amount of advantages, at the same time, it also multiplies your security challenges. And ransomware has become a big threat. The second threat is 35% attacks are ransomware. Open source attacks are on increase. API vulnerability. A number of systems today talk to each other. Your bank can talk to a payment gateway, or your bank can validate your identity using your Aadhaar card. And for that, it connects to the Aadhaar system, which is developed by Government of India or which is owned by Government of India. You can do an online transaction, transfer from your account to someone you have to pay, or someone you have purchased something, and that person's account could be on a different bank. And all this communication happens through API. Now, if these API are not secure and these are vulnerable, then there could be good amount of breach, a good amount of damage. Security as a platform is developing as a trend. Increased use of multi-factor authentication. This is again from security perspective. You would have seen your bank, if you're making a fund transfer, they'll also send you an OTP. They'll also ask you some other questions so that they can be very sure that it's you only who is doing that transfer. So these are the trends. Higher automation and security assessment. Again, if there are so many attacks happening and if there are so many equipments and so many machines, humanly it will be impossible to see all those alerts, and there has to be an automation. And that's where machine learning and artificial intelligence are becoming part of it. And then of course, COVID-19 consequences. We are working from work from home. Work from home is less secure because we have a router at home, which is not that secure. And that causes a further challenges. Number of tools are there. These are some of the list. I don't want to go through it. Metasploit is another one, which is a framework of tools. Number of tools are there, zillions of tools, which can help to achieve all this. From the security perspective, it's a top growing skill area. And this is a data about 21 to 25. Application security is going to grow about almost about 1.75 times. So this is what it is. You can see, you can have a look at the slides, and that's where I will leave it to the NTWORKS experiential program, what the program is, what it covers, and that's something which Kaushik will take you through. Kaushik.
All right, thank you, sir. So guys, I'll just try to make it quick as we're almost towards the end of the session. So the NTWORKS experiential program runs for 12 weeks, 16 weeks in total, with 12 weeks of core topics. We're very flexible of the classes. We don't have classes during the week. You'll just have classes on the weekend, one on Saturday and two on Sunday. Like Jagdish sir, we have other experts who come from different expertise who will bring in their domain knowledge. And all of our classes are live classes. None of them are pre-recorded. So you technically get to speak to these experts. On the other hand, pre-reads will be given before every classes that begin, and there will be 10 plus projects and assessment based on every core island that we're going to cover. So a brief about the topics that we're going to cover is introduction to cybersecurity, network security, cyber attacks, web application security, incident management. So web application security is done for 2 weeks, and Jagdish sir is the one who is going to teach that class. In addition, there is digital forensics, GRC, identity and access management, cloud security, SIEM, and CTI. So in this case, also digital forensics is head by Jagdish sir. We also teaching tool based off every topic. For example, for network security, we'll be covering Nmap and Wireshark. For cyber attacks, we've included reverse engineering of malware for this course. Also, for web application security, we'll be covering Burp Suite and Zap. And in addition to that, with incident management and others, there's always a tool that follows it. And for SIEM, we're doing QRadar as one of the modules. When it comes to payment, we are very flexible. You get two options: either you prepay the money, 59,999, and in case if you don't get a placement, then there'll be a specific amount that will be refunded back to you. There's a terms and conditions that apply. On the other hand, if you are not in a position to pay a great deal of money, you can pay 29,999, and once you get a job through us, we'll be able to get the rest of the money. So this is a limited edition offer that's going on right now. We are currently in our fourth batch, and we're pretty ramping up all the students. We do offer placement assistance with some of our companies being there on the website that you can check. Also, I'd request you guys to apply for these programs as soon as possible. And I have shared a link on the chat, and I'm going to do that again. Yes, Utkarsh and Gaurav, it is a paid, as I've just explained the structure to you. I'd require you to kind of just check this link out. The registration is absolutely free. We have 10 plus experts who will be kind of teaching us all these courses. And today we have a promotion running on Jagdish's URL, wherein we will try to give you some sort of like a discount in terms of the course if you register today. And registration is absolutely free. Once you're done, one of our academic counselors will get in touch with you. As I said, we also do placement assistance. We do have tie-ups with certain companies that we can try to push you for. So I'd strongly recommend you guys to check out the course as we are kind of expanding. And the highlight is this is much, much better than a college degree, just because we don't have academicians who are teaching here. We're actually having industry professionals who are teaching here. And the course has been carved out in a fashion as in we teach you what the industry requires, and we're trying to meet that requirement. So yes, please do check the link that I've just shared with you on the chat. And if there's any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat and I'll try to answer towards the end. Over to you, Jagdish. Thanks much for that.
Okay, thanks, Kaushik. And I think you covered it well. And guys, the other thing is the key focus of this course is it's not only the theory, but it's along with tools. So if you see, every topic has got tools. So it gives you a practical hands-on exposure, which actually helps you during your interview process and later on getting into the industry. So that's something very, very important. Now, briefly, I'll cover very quickly something called OWASP. OWASP is an Open Web Application Security project. It's a community non-profit foundation, and they are across world, and this is where big organization, IT organization are part of that. They have created it, and this basically works on security. So one of the things they do is every couple of years they publish a list of top 10 vulnerabilities in web applications. Now these help the developers as well as the security professional to focus on that what are the things which should be which should be taken care, or which should have a critical focus during development. And these top 10 vulnerabilities, and they're not something which is out of blue. There's a good amount of research which goes on it. I find out what kind of vulnerabilities were being exploited, what kind of attacks were happening, and what was happening. And the top 10 are, I talked about SQL injection. So injection, which includes SQL as then broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization, using components with known vulnerabilities. Like we talked about somebody else, API, insufficient logging and monitoring, not having the track of what your system is doing, XML external entities. XML has its own weaknesses, broken access control. It's like, giving somebody a wrong access. And then finally, security misconfiguration. Your systems are not configured properly. So these are the things which are the top 10 as per 2021 report from OWASP. This is again something which we cover during our course, and then we tell that how these vulnerabilities can be handled, or they can be avoided. So that's about today's masterclass. Great being with you. And it's the last quiz time. Kaushik.
So which of the following is not a OWASP vulnerability? We just covered it right now, 2 minutes back. Let's just read the question. It says it's not a OWASP vulnerability. Right, that's a good participation. Waiting for 20 odd people. Come on, guys. Last 5-10 seconds. And then we'll just jump into the Q&A.
So I think COSEC already more than 50%, which is CSS.
Yep, I have actually answered it correctly. Yes, guys, CSS is not the OWASP vulnerability. CSS basically means cascading style sheets, which is part of HTML. The other ones are all OWASP vulnerabilities. And brilliant, 77% people have participated. That's great. Okay, we're just gonna pick up, I think we're done with the content bit of it. We're just gonna quickly see if we have any questions from the chat, and I think we do. Can you please briefly say how to develop an integrated tool for Android application vulnerability analysis using Python? Okay. So we have a question.
Sorry, come again.
Yes, sir. So there's a participant who wants to know if you can briefly say how to develop an integrated tool for Android application vulnerability analysis using Python.
This is wonderful, and I think whoever has asked the question, I don't have the name, but Python is just a language. Python provides a number of features. For that matter, you can use any language, but it also depends what kind of tool you want to develop. If you want to develop a tool which is a network analyzer or things like that, then probably better option for you will be C or C++, because those provide more elementary access to the calls. But Python, you can develop tools like which can give you good dashboards, which can give you good analyzers, which can analyze your data, especially anything to do with the logs and monitoring. That's where Python tools will be. Python will be a very, very good language to use for tools.
All right. I think so we have another question from Mandeep. If we consider a SaaS app, software as a service app, as a web app, how to get the penetration or the SaaS report from the vendor, since they would be reluctant to share such reports and we would be unaware of the security posture?
It depends on that. There are two things. The contract which you're doing with the SaaS, now security is actually part of that contractual requirement. Like anybody, when one goes into an employment, they sign something called NDA. So any SaaS vendor which you're going to take, it has to be part of your contractual requirement. That's how you handle it. And all the good SaaS providers, let's say like Salesforce and all that, they are aware of this, and they would not hesitate to share the data which you need because it's end of the day, it's about your own data.
All right, so I think we have another question from Mandeep himself. Can SecDevOps be called a secure SDLC process? I think he means, is it a part of SSDLC?
It's a philosophy, or it's a method of using, Mandeep. When do we start including security in our development process? SecDevOps means that right from beginning. So if that's the way we define it's a secure, but secure development process goes much beyond that. It's more of an approach, I would say, that right from your first step of your product building, you start using SecDev. But secure development also means that, okay, you should use secure API, you should not do this thing, you should not use HTTP, you should use HTTPS, you should use good amount of encryption for any transactions which are critical. You should define a criticality level of transaction, and then you should go for multi-factor authentication and all that. So secure development method includes these things.
Right. So we just have a couple of more questions from Prakhar. Is scripting a must in application security and cybersecurity in general?
One of the tools. And yes, if you are a cybersecurity professional, scripting is something which you should know, because it's going to help you in doing number of tasks easily, fast, and quickly.
All right, and so we'll pick up the last question. That's Utkarsh. Which field would you recommend, network security or web security?
Sorry, come again.
Which field would you recommend, network security or web security?
End of the day, to overlap. It's a specialization. It's a specialization. So I think you should go for a security professional profile, and after that you can specialize whether you want to go into network or you want to go into application security. From the growth perspective, if you look at the chart, application security is something which is going to grow very, very fast. It's 164% growth between 21 to 25.
I think we just have a last question. For better security of web applications, which language would you recommend, Python or Java?
No, I wouldn't. It's not question of Python or Java. It's the question of how you have built the application, how you have built the application. So it's not question of Java or Python. Have you used the secure development practices? You may have used a developed a Python application, and if you are using all HTTP fundamentals, or if you are not taking care of, say, SQL injection, then it's going to be a problem, and it's going to be equal level of problem if you are doing it in Java. So it's not question of Java or Python, both are same for me.
All right, thank you so much for patiently answering all the questions, sir. It's always a pleasure to have someone like you on our platform to share knowledge. Guys, that's the end of the session. Guys who are looking out for the recordings, it will be available on the Ant2Walk website under upcoming masterclasses. Usually is available in 2 to 3 days. I do strongly recommend you to check the link out, as it's a promotional discount running right now. Tamal Selvan, the procedure to get the certificate, you'll be emailed with the registration that you've done. If you've registered, you will get the certificate. You need to give us some time, as there are not 10 or 20 people, but more than 100 people registered. So it depends on that. So probably wait for a couple of days, but I'd request everybody and also thank everybody to have been a participant, good participation in terms of the quiz and the poll. If you have any other doubts, and if look forward to all the events on our masterclass, we're going to have other classes as well. But for now, take care of yourself. Once again, thank you so much, sir, to have come on our platform. And we really look forward to more sessions in the future as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.